You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. I hope you're well. The interview subject coming up for you is Bjorn Gelotte from the outfit In Flames. Now, Bjorn, if you're listening, my apologies if my Australian brain has not been able to get around how to pronounce your Swedish surname. Now, the reason for the chat is to promote Clayman, believe it or not. So I remember that. Year 2000 it came out originally. It's the 20th anniversary. It'll be out, the reissue, on the 28th of August, and I believe the band have either remixed or remastered it. Fuck, I should get that right before I do these introductions, shouldn't I? Anyway, we do talk about that through the chat. We'll get to it anyway. But I must say, In Flames, in particular Bjorn's guitar work, I think has been enormously influential. So he's one of those guys I had on the bucket list that I always wanted to talk to, and here we are. So here he is, Bjorn Gelotte from In Flames. Bjorn, Andy Mackay-Smith, how you going?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, yeah. Mate, these conferences are so weird, aren't they? You sort of drop in on the conversation already happening, and you're sort of hoping that the person before you knows when their time is up, and you don't want to interrupt or intrude or anything like that, mate. So, look, that'll be my first question for you, mate. How's the conference call been going? Have we been treating you well?
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather people call me, because then they have my number. If it breaks up, they can always call me back and stuff like that. But this is kind of working. As long as people know to redial if they get cut off, then this is fine. I guess this is the work or the regular day now for a lot of people. Conference calls and Skype calls and Zoom calls instead of actually interacting with people. It's I think this is the everyday now for people. I'm not used to it, but
yeah,
I like to do my interviews face to face. When you sit there, and then it's more of a discussion than like an interview. I like that.
I did too. I got to tell you, I've done. God, I think I'm up to almost 600 interviews at this point. And the conversations are so much better than the bloody awful interview style thing. So, mate, you can expect a conversation from me, I can assure you. But look, I've got to kick it off somewhere formally, I suppose, and say that. Look, I'm an old fan. I'm from the 90s because I'm about the same age as you. I'm in my mid-40s. And look, I remember when you guys broke back in the mid-90s when nobody gave a shit about metal. But, I'll go even a bit further back and I'll say that if At the Gates could be credited with bringing melodic death metal to the world's attention, it's my view that In Flames popularised it. And you were there pretty much since the start. I know nobody from the debut was still in the band, but you've been around as long as anybody. Your second album to your fifth album, Clayman, are just magnificent, mate. I offer you a sincere congratulations for being a part of the collective that crafted those albums, because they are so important to heavy metal fans, those 4 albums, because that was an era, and remember this, that was an era when mainstream media types at the Rolling Stone, NME in the UK, and all these other self-important fuckwits at music magazines took great pleasure in shitting on heavy metal in general. But you guys, and very few others, took the torch. It was really because of you guys. Cradle of Filth with Stuart Anstis back in it, the band back in those days, really taking heavy metal in a brand new direction. And to the point, mate, where these days that I reckon just about every metalcore band ever owes you guys a debt of gratitude. So I guess after I've said all of that, and just to kick off the conversation, I mean, out of all of
thank you so much, man. These are big things you're saying, and being part of it back then wasn't really like, oh, I'm in the scene, I got to do something. We were just making music we wanted to hear, and since, as you said, grunge was all over the place, or even metal was, as you said, taking a beating, but not in our circuit, not in our bunch of friends or anything. And I got lucky to meet some really cool friends with a vision back then, or actually a functioning band that they had a record deal, and they were going to make a record, and they didn't give a fuck what was going on. It really was that simple, and I love that attitude, and I love the fact I could be part of the writing right away, even though I played drums on the first couple of records.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, we did, the first one I recorded was Jester. I joined one that were recording Subterranean, the EP that was right before that. And of course, we listened to a ton of At the Gates, and especially Slaughter of the Soul. That was like, for us, this is
landmark.
Not the songs we want to make, but we wanted to sound like that, because it was so massive. And we came to Fredman, and we recorded stuff in before, but when it came to the gesture, it's like, yeah, we want to sound like this. That sound is amazing. And he just laughed and said, yeah, good luck, he said. Because it's like they spent 7 weeks in the studio perfecting that sound. They did thousands of takes, and it was so much hard work. And we had 11 days, including mix. So he said, yeah, it's not going to happen. But so we had to twist and turn, find our own way of getting a sound that we thought was really heavy. And that's sort of how we always have done it. We know there's limitations to our, to what we can do music. I mean, technically with our instruments, but there's always ways to find a way around that and achieve what you want to do. So, and then working with Fredman at the time was extremely fun. It was more like a part of the band than anything. But on Clayman later, it was more of a job for him. So that was a huge difference. And there's a couple of years in between there. I think he got his family, like kids and stuff like that. And so his priorities changed, and ours didn't. So I think that's why that was the last one we did with him.
Okay, because the band,
record at night. We wanted to, drink beer and all that stuff, and we wanted to work between 9 and 5.
But I mean, you're one of those bands at this point where if you say to somebody in the heavy metal that really knows their shit, you know what I mean. But if you say Horacle, they know it's you guys. If you say Clayman, they know it's you guys. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't even need to mention the name of the band. It's like saying Master of Puppets. You know who we're talking about. You guys are...
Wow, dude.
But you guys arrived at that point very early on, and I can't emphasise that point enough, that you were so important to heavy metal through the late 90s. But, I mean, as I say, you could have picked any one of these 4 classic albums. Why Clayman to remix?
Well, basically because it is a 20-year anniversary, and we figured we missed out on. Actually, we don't really look back. That's something we've done, and we've learned from it, and we're super proud of it. We just constantly bring all that with us. I'm not very romantic about the past. It was awesome, obviously, but I think now is way better, and the future is looking really good if we can get rid of this shit happening right now. But besides that, it's 25 years later, I love what I'm doing. It's insane. It's crazy when you think about it, and the things I've seen and done and experienced, it's insane. So each and every album has brought me here, and given me the possibilities to look forward into the future and what may come. So for us, it's never been a matter of celebrating that because that was the golden era or anything. If you look at the audiences, nobody gave a shit back then, really. I mean, it was a couple of hundred when we toured. It's different nowadays, So it's really, I guess every band has this, you kind of split your audience every new record you make. And it's funny how that moves with you. It's in the beginning when we did Horacle, it's no Jester Race, And then we did Colony. It's like, well, the last good one was obviously Horacle. And then it just moves on like that. So I think the biggest changes was when me and Anders joined and we did Jester Race. That was a big change because we started tuning down, had a different sound, different influences, obviously, because I come from a more hard rock, Sabbath, Rainbow, Purple, all that stuff.
You're Iron Maiden, Richie Blackmore,
but everybody loved Maiden, so that was like the joining, and everybody loved death metal. So it was like a combination of the two. But my music was it's very melodic or melody based, but it's more about the riffing, I think, and having the melodies inside the riff and stuff like that. Jesper was always that. He was fantastic when it came to melodies, and I've learned a lot from him, obviously. And I love a good melody, but I also love the heaviness underneath. So that mix was what attracted me. But it's been quite a journey, and this, I guess, this happens to every band. If they want to be properly true, they do what they want to do and not what they expect an audience want them to do.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, look, things are just getting better for you guys. Those shows that you did in Mexico with Deep Purple, you played in front of, what was it, 70,000 people or something? Something ridiculous. I mean, you were playing in front of as many people as you could.
I still can't believe we played shows with Deep Purple. That's the band I grew up with. My dad's absolute favorite band, and so I heard everything with them. And having Ian Gillan come into your dressing room after the first show, clapping his hands, saying, that was fucking good. You know, I have no clue what the fuck it was, but it was fucking good. He said, so, okay, you know, and I broke down in fucking tears. You know, I was amazed.
Lovely,
that's my hero coming in there. So I still can't believe we did those shows, and I'm super proud about it. And I can't say that I remember too much of it because I was in a weird pink cloud somewhere. I guess I don't know. It was so cool.
It's so awesome to see you guys do that sort of stuff because people don't understand how big a deal that is. And I imagine you were quite nervous before you went on stage, even though you've done thousands and thousands of shows. But that's different, isn't it? Playing in front of that many people with a band like that. I mean, very few bands. There's really only you guys that have gotten to that level with a band like that in South America and in parts of the world that still attract just that many people. Like, heavy metal never went away in Mexico, Central America and South America did.
No. Yeah.
It just is always there. And people in Australia and the US and Europe don't understand that.
I think our biggest challenge was, what we were a bit nervous about was like the first couple of thousand were seated. And then there was like the what do you call it? The
mosh pit.
Bleachers? No.
Bleachers.
Well, there was no mosh pit because everybody was sitting down, you know, and it's insane. Wow. And we go out there and try to get that energy exchange. You know, we give it all, they give it all, and we all like race to the next level. And that was really hard in the beginning, but we figured, fuck it, we're on Deep Purple stage, and some of the guys are watching us right now, all the time, you know. And I haven't felt, you know, that kind of, I mean, we played a couple of shows with Metallica, and that's the same when you have Lars or somebody standing side stage watching you. It's like, that's just surreal. The show is the show. We know what we're doing, you know, and we love every minute of it, you know. But stuff like that, it kind of sticks out a little bit, you know. So that was, but the challenge was to get that energy up there because everybody was sitting down, you know. It's really hard. But I think we won them over, and there's obviously an age difference in our audiences, but I think it actually came over pretty well. Yeah.
Well, what's really interesting too is I listened to Eddie Trunk, and he's a fan of you guys, and I don't think he's a fan of even I know you guys aren't a typical death metal band, but you know what I'm saying. You're approaching an extreme metal act, but he likes you guys. So you guys have crossed over into that mainstream audience. Do you recognise that?
Well, that's really hard to tell because, I mean, we do our shows and that's really when we can see who's into the band or not, because it's like that changes. What I'm really happy to see is that we kind of rejuvenate our audience. Every time we go out there, we see new, fresh, younger people, and hopefully a bunch of the ones that's been there in the past years will still be there. But it's a really cool feeling. I've noticed that when you go to like Slayer concert as well, they can actually bring a couple of new kids in as well.
That's
but I can see a lot for us, you know. And so that's, I think more about that than maybe what's in, you know, mainstream audience. I just want people to enjoy it. And in the end, bands that have been doing this for a number of years, they know what they're doing. So it's not going to be about the craft. It's going to be about taste. So it's like, and that you can't control. And we decided from the very get-go, I mean, as soon as we started playing live, like, okay, let's do stuff that we like, you know, we find fun, interesting and challenging for us, because we can't control anything else. What we can control is, well, you know, make sure that we do what we want to do. And having that mindset has helped us through all that, because as we talked about earlier, it's like you always get to this point where you kind of divide your audience a little bit, and we got lucky or worked hard enough, or everything just starts aligned, and we get a younger audience every now and then, and that's what kept us going, you know.
Hey, yourself and Anders, I mean, you guys have been there since 1995, so can you believe that's 25 bloody years you've had to be around each other and smell each other's BO and listen to each other's bullshit, you know? So what's the secret to that relationship?
In the beginning, everything is like peachy, because it's like, this is new, fresh, and you know, you're on a tour bus together in the US, or you fly into Australia, or you're in Japan for the first couple of times, and that's it's so much going on in your head. You don't even think about what you're doing or any grudges or anything like that. But once you start not getting used to it, but once you've done it enough, then you have time and to relax and think about stuff. And obviously, there's arguments. We've had numerous lineup changes, and those are fucking hard to deal with every time, and it sucks because it's your brothers. You know, you've done all this together, and somebody just decides to say they don't want to do it anymore, and these are hard times. But I've found that we've always gone out of these sort of crises stronger because we found somebody who actually wants to do this, somebody who's actually hungry again, and that re-energizes the band. So these things have obviously helped, and getting to know each other for such a long time knows that we know I know Anders better than I know my own brothers and sisters. You know, that's just how it is. I know him probably the best, you know. And likewise, I think from his, vice versa, I think from his point of view. And we know we have this same approach. I mean, he's more of a music lover, or more, let's put it a different way. Yeah. He's way more open to new influences or new bands and new sounds and new ideas than I am. I'm kind of old school in that way. That doesn't mean I'm not interested and intrigued by stuff that's going on. I'm very interested in trying new stuff, and that's for, you know, better or worse, basically. But for me, it keeps me going, keeps me having fun, and having him as a constant source of new information and ideas and stuff is actually good to have. So it's been working out really good, and you know, it's after a while you realize you can't just fuck around when you're on tour. You have to, you know, be there on time. You have to start employing people that can make sure that this is the best it's possibly going to be. We have some crews been with us for over 20 years now. Our front of house guy and tour manager, he's been with us 20 years. You know, he's grown up with us. He's a couple of years younger than us. And it's insane when you think about it. But that's, you know, it becomes a touring family. So all these arguments that we've had, or all the blah, 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 we're a family. Families have those, you know. It's been a long time, but it's been a good time.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to talk more about that, mate. I think we've only got 20 minutes, have we? Is that right? Are they done in 20-minute blocks, the interviews, before the next person comes in?
I really don't know, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Keep talking.
No worries. Well, look, what I love about you too, mate, is you're a musician's musician as far as I'm concerned, because I'm a musician and I really tune into that aspect of an artist. You're a guitar connoisseur, and I like that. And I've enjoyed watching your videos where you talk about your brand new Epiphone. But I remember that Gibson that you used for years that you said you basically wore out because you played it so much. So is that at home in a case under the bed somewhere, or have you put that in a display cabinet in the Hard Rock Cafe at Gothenburg or something?
No, it will stay at home with me. But no, it's actually true. I mean, I had to refret it once. And when it was time to do it again, I just felt like she probably wouldn't survive that, you know. I had a friend take all the measurements, make sure it was the right woods and everything, and he was going to make me a replica of it, so I had something to play. But then Gibson approached and said, well, we can make you a signature. And I love the brand. I love Gibson, but I don't like the pricing. Because the point is, if I'm going to play something and some people see that, you know, they got to be able to afford it too. If I get 2 free guitars, that doesn't change anything, because nobody could afford a guitar for, I don't know, $4,000 or whatever. It's like, that's insane. I said, well, can you make it around $1,000? Because that means you can work all summer as a kid, and maybe, you know, you can get yourself that guitar, and it's got to be a quality guitar. So I was really, really happy when Epiphone sent me the first prototype, and I've played those guitars ever since I got them. So it's amazing the work they've done.
What do you use amps these days? I suppose you do, or are you just using a Fractal?
Yeah, always. No. Always amps. I mean, I've used on certain fly-in shows when it's not possible. I've used what I call Kempers.
Sure.
A little bit, and they do the job. I mean, it's just not the same. I've never felt any of those Fractals or anything has ever been the same. Tube amps is where it's at. I really think.
Awesome. You're old school.
There's a certain life. Yeah, but there's a certain life to it, that because it's not static. It's not the same every day. And my guitar tech, Greg, he's been with me for 12, 13 years. He knows everything about those amps, and there's nothing new in them. You know, it's the same old. It's even getting kind of hard to get some of the spare parts, because this is, you know, I have a few of those Marshalls that they did like a prototype amp, and I loved it. I was in London actually, and had a go at it before it got, even before it had a what do you call it, a casing or anything, and it was amazing. I was there, had some pointers ideas, and it was amazing to be part of that. And then the lead designer quit, and all those ideas and amps were just standing around in a warehouse somewhere, and I managed to get my hands on a few. And those are the amps I've used ever since. And I think they managed to build a few more. I got some from friends that got prototypes as well. So I probably have the biggest collections, those amps in the world, thinking of it.
I bet,
right
yeah.
now.
I bet you do, yeah. Well, I'll just do a check. Is there anybody in the background there waiting to come in and interview you, I wonder, Bjorn? I wonder if there is. Just because believe me, there's heap. I've been waiting for this opportunity to chat to you for ages, to be honest.
Yeah. No, you probably hear a bling, something like that.
Oh, the bling. Okay, gotcha.
They connect themselves. Yeah. So yeah, just shoot, man.
Okay. Look, I've got to ask you about Gothenburg, because it's a scene that feels very similar to what Sydney was like in the late 70s and early 80s, with all of the punk bands that were coming out of there that had a global impact, like the Lime Spiders and In Excess, this sort of thing. But Gothenburg obviously is very famous for heavy metal, and it's had a huge impact on the global scene. I mean, there's you guys obviously and At the Gates, but beyond that, The Haunted, Evergrey, Hammerfall, even Hardcore Superstar. And when I was doing my research for our chat, even that crazy frog thing, that ning 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 thing, that comes from somebody in Gothenburg. And Ace of Base. I didn't realise Ace of Base were from Gothenburg, but have you ever thought, Sweden is famous for great musicians, probably per head per capita, I estimate more great musicians come from Sweden than anywhere else in the world, but have you ever tried to reason or discussed with anybody else from Gothenburg why the city is so important for music?
To be honest, this is a really hard, or it's an interesting subject, but it's hard to talk about it, because when I started out, I'd played music on the youth centers and stuff like that since I was probably 13, 14 or anything. But when I met these guys, my cousin who's a metalhead, met Jesper for the first time, which was one of his best friends. They were into the same kind of music I was, and they're from a way different part of town. But when we started recording together, playing songs together, we all ended up in the studio for Edman. So I think for our genre, Studio Fredman or Frederick was very important. He was the hub. All these bands came in. You had bands from southern Sweden. You had bands from northern Sweden. Everybody came into Fredman to record with him. So I think he was the catalyst or the hub, really.
Gotcha.
For this kind of music. So I think that is more, especially for our genre. Obviously, he's done a couple of different things, but really where he shines is with this kind of music. And he had a different approach to making a sound than perhaps they had in Stockholm at the time. Bands like Entombed and those, more garagey, more raw. And Fredrik, he had a way more polished way of doing things, and that's just something that a lot of bands liked, us included. So I think he really was, for our genre, more important than the city itself, I think. We rarely talk about. We talk about those times because everybody was hanging there. It was like a youth center, where you drank beer and listened to other bands recording. You just hang out there. We even had a rehearsal space a couple of floors down in the same building, just so we can go up there and listen to other bands record. It was very important. So I'd rather say so. But Sweden in general, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's only 10 million people living here, and there's a ton of bands. I think that we realized that we can't stay in this country and do this. We can actually explore the world, and if anybody else is interested. I think most bands here that has achieved some sort of success has been on the road, has done the touring, has exposed the music to different audiences, and and that way gained more ground and opened and paved the roads for others to follow. So for us it was I think Hammerfall Hammerfall toured with Death in the US back in the day, and that was really
1999.
Insane. And it's that was insane tour. I wish I was on that tour, because Hammerfall guys are really good friends of mine, and I'm a huge Death fan, and I never got to see them. So and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But and then At the Gates had been in the US, I think, as well. But not many bands had, and what we did, it was brand new for us. It was super small. First show we ever did was Milwaukee Metal Fest, and we flew over, stayed 1 or 2 days prior to the show, played for almost 20 minutes in what looked like the school cafeteria in front of maybe 100 people or something like that, and then flew back home. So it's that was the first show we did over there, and then we got offered to do a support tour. With, I think it was Moons. I can't remember what the festival was. No, it was probably Earth Crisis or something like that.
Wow. Yeah, I remember them. Great band.
It was, yeah. We didn't. That's the cool thing. I think we did some touring with bands of different genres that opened up, the hardcore scene for us. We could do shows with hardcore bands, and hardcore followers would actually go to our shows later one weekend. So we did a lot of that tour, and the cross-genre, if you will, touring was really, really fun, and it was really, interesting, and you learned a ton of it, a ton of the stuff that we still think about today when we write. We picked up on those tours. So,
something that I've had a chat to Michael Ackerfeld from. What's the band's? Yeah, Opeth, of course. I've had a couple of conversations with him.
Opeth, yeah.
Yeah, and I've also spoken quite a bit to Marcus Jadell. Marcus would be one of my favourite guitarists of all time, I must say. And then, of course, there's yourself, and there's Oscar Dronjak, and there's plenty of others. But the other thing, too, is brilliant guitarists. I mean, Yngwie is the first one that probably comes to people's mind. But he's really American these days. He's not really... I mean, I know he's from Sweden originally, but he's been in the US for longer.
Yeah.
But have you guys ever? I mean, I'd love to see this, mate. Like the best of Swedish guitarists, and bring that on a tour. Like you remember the G3 things that had Satriani and Steve Vai. Have you ever thought maybe that could happen?
Interesting. I don't think so. I mean, we never. I don't think most of those guys, I don't think they consider themselves solo guitar players or just guitar players. I think most of these guys are songwriters. They love the whole thing with creating their own music, and I think it would be a fun thing to do, like a one-off thing when everybody goes up there, there's a couple of riffs or a couple of solos. But I've done stuff like that, like I've guested on with other bands, and it's a fun thing to do. But I don't think to try to do something. I mean, everybody's schedule is so busy right now, so it will just be like a fun one-off thing if it happens.
Yeah,
but I don't know if that. I mean, with Yngwie, Satriani, Steve Vai, Zach, all these guys, they are solo artists to begin with, or that's what they do most of the time, and so they're more used to that. But we're bands. I mean, that's where I know how to play. I'm not a very skilled musician. I know what I like to hear, and I try to play that.
Yeah.
Really
I think the fans want this stuff. I mean, you can tell I'm a fan, and I've been into heavy metal for a long time. I'd love for you guys to do it. I'd love to hear, especially yourself. You're known as a riff maniac. You know what I'm saying? Some of the riffs that you've created over the years are just Jesus. I mean, as I say, those from not the debut, but the second album to the fifth album, Clayman. I mean, your riffs are just all time. I mean, you're like fucking Dave Murray or something. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be just lovely to hear you isolated and doing music, just you bringing yourself in that guitar, that sound that you've got. Because I'd love to hear you, like, just you, not even a bass guitar next to you, just you throwing it off the rack, just your sound of your fingers on the strings, and just whatever you decide to come up with on the spot.
I don't know. I've never thought about it. We're a band, and it's always been a band thing. It's like I've never considered myself like any of those guys that actually they are as good as you can get at their instruments. For me, it's always been about the songwriting and the help of the rest of the guys to make what I do sound great. At least in my ears, it's really a group effort. It can't be just a one thing. And I was never interested in that. But yeah, I mean, I don't really like doing clinics because then people expect you to be really good at what you do.
Yeah,
I'm really good at what I do, but not in general. I'm not I can't teach you how to play guitar. I can show you the basics, but if you're looking for details and stuff like that, a lot of these things just happen. I don't have a technique for it. If it sounds good, I try to play it, And it's just a different mindset from some of these shredders out there. And I admire all of them because it's a lot of work they put in, and I kind of focus on the songwriting or instead of and probably punishing my practice routine by not sitting and playing guitar every day. It's like I've always found there's a ton of those really, really good shredders, and I'm not one of them, but I like what I play, and I like what I hear when I play it. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it's look, it's an interesting thing from the fans' perspective. We form our own view, and then obviously I get a chance to chat to you as a fan. And I think, I just love to hear you isolated and doing something like that. But mate, look, I better let you go. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. I really appreciate you doing what you've done over the years, and the thing is with this bloody COVID thing, like we were saying at the beginning of the chat, I hope it stops, but who knows what the hell's going to happen with that, and we get to see you in Australia sometime soon.
Yeah, who knows, man. Yeah, we can't wait to get back. We were so close. It was insane. We came to New Zealand, and we're supposed to make a show there, and then a couple of shows in Australia, and then we just, that day, basically, when we landed, it's like, no, that's not going to happen, so we had to book it, take it back home. That's the longest flight for basically a lunch beer I ever had. So it's like it was insane, really. But at the same time, if we would have stayed another day, we would have been quarantined, and then we would have missed our flight, and we would have missed Australia anyway. Correct. So it was just not in the stars at the time. But we love Australia, so we will be back. No worries about that. I have to thank you so much for all your kind words. You actually made me blush a couple of times. That's very nice.
It's my pleasure, mate. You need to know this stuff. Sometimes I know it can be a thankless task doing what you do with fans, heaping shit on bands and blabbermouth and all the rest of it. But you should know, man, you've had an impact. And what you've done is very meaningful for a lot of people. And I'm in my 40s and still listening. Just know that.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. All the best with everything, eh?
Yeah, you too, man. I hope to see you soon.
For sure, mate. No worries. Catch you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that interview subject is Bjorn Gelotte from the Swedish outfit In Flames. Thank you so much for listening.